Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the JSUN sports team here on JacksonSun.com.
Hey y'all, welcome into another edition of Chalk Talk, the college edition. I am Jackson Sun sports editor Brandon Shields. He is our local college sports writer, Craig Thomas. And Craig, you got one team off, you got another team playing on Thursday, but it's still going to be a full weekend for you. First off, let's talk about that Thursday game. You're going to be in Martin as Tennessee Tech comes calling to UTM.
Yeah, this is sort of an interesting series, and I hadn't really grasped it until I was kind of looking through it earlier this week, but the recent history of this series has been very strange because since Jason Simpson got to campus in 2006, the road team has won every game except one.
Wow.
And the one time that the road team didn't win was 2012 when UT Martin had that game, had themselves in position to win and then win the conference championship. And they lost by a point in overtime, and that spoiled everything, and they haven't gotten that close since then. So that was a tough little bit of history, but UTM did go back to Cookeville last year and win. Obviously, they need to win badly in a lot of ways. One of the things that came up in Monday's press conference is that, some of the goals that UTM set for itself earlier this year are out, and that's no secret. You go 0-3, you're not going to win the conference championship. You're not going to be up in that top group. It's just not going to happen. But at one win now, I think the goal is to try and get as close as you can to a winning season. That's one of the things I wrote about for Tuesday's paper. You obviously assumed the loss to Mississippi State, but after that, those conference games, if they were to win all of them, they'd be at 500.
Okay.
So it's not real likely. Obviously, given the way they played, it wouldn't happen. But I think that's one thing to shoot for, and that's one thing as a player. You kind of want to play for some of the pride and respect within your program. Those older guys have kind of sort of continued the progress that the program's made the last few years, and you don't want to go out 3-9 or something like that. So I think that's one thing for them to think about. Tennessee Tech is a team that's in a similar situation to UT Martin. They haven't had a real great start to the season. Offensively, they're a bit limited, although they do have a couple of quarterbacks they use, one of which is their primary passer, and then they've got one that can kind of do a little bit of both. He's done a little bit of passing, but a lot of rushing. His name's Darian Stone. He killed UTM 2 years ago. He's a player that Jason Simpson actually recruited out of high school, out of East Tennessee. So, this is a good chance for UT Martin to get a win. This team is not so far as good as Eastern Kentucky, as SEMO, or as Jacksonville State. All three of them have had an excellent start to the year. They're all either ranked or very close. But UT Martin's got to still play better football, got to quit giving up the big plays, and find a little bit more consistency in the pass protection, run protection to get some wins.
Just for conversation's sake, if they were to win out, including Mississippi State, like Dak Prescott gets hurt the week before and Dan Mullen had to figure out what to do without him, would there be a chance of them getting to the playoffs?
No.
Okay.
No, not 7-5.
Okay. And then on Saturday, 2 games. First, we'll get to the road game as Lane travels down to, is it Georgia?
State, yeah, Albany State. Albany State's team that came up here last year. UTM had maybe its most exciting win in the last couple of years, winning in the last few seconds, a pass into the end zone, into the corner of the end zone. They kind of sent everybody to the right, and one receiver went left. And they threw over to him and won the game with maybe a minute or so to go. So it was it definitely is as happy as I've seen Lane Field in the 3 or so years I've been on the beat. Lane looks rough right now, to be perfectly honest. The last 2 weeks have been, I think, discouraging performances. Not a shock that they lost to Tuskegee, especially given the history, but you expect them to be more competitive than 44-3. Same last week. Stillman's a good team. Their quarterback was the league's offensive player of the week based on that performance. But he had way too much time. He was able to find his receivers. He was able to just basically run that offense without too much trouble. Obviously, not having Craig Drummond on the defensive line really hurts, just as it did in the Tuskegee game. But one player you can't put that much on one player's shoulders or two guys' shoulders. And right now, Lane has some issues, I think, across the board on offense and defense. Quarterback situation is still not settled the way Malik Hoskins would like. And when I talked with him on Saturday right after the game, granted that was immediately after the game, so things can change.
Right.
But his gut at that point was that he's just going to stick with Terrence Ayers anyway, instead of, I guess, kind of put up with whatever mistakes happen, because you figure that might be the best route going forward. At least that's kind of the sense I got from him. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that as the season goes on. Definitely a tough couple weeks for Lane. They need to bounce back, and they can get one. I mean, this team, they won on the road at Payne, so I don't think the road thing is really that much of an issue. But Albany State's better than that. This is a team that's beaten Payne like Lane did, and they lost to Tuskegee like they
Lane
did.
did.
But the results were a little bit better, margins a little bit more in their favor. So, Lane needs a much better effort than they had this past week against Stillman to beat Albany State.
All right, one final game. I think it's going to be your first time to see Memphis this year.
It will be.
As
Looking forward to it.
As the Tigers are hosting Houston.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about maybe 50,000 people at the Liberty Bowl, which, given what they were coming from the last year or two, is pretty impressive. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. I think it'll be a totally different atmosphere, whether they hit that landmark or not. Memphis, I mean, so much optimism after that, winning over Cincinnati.
Sure.
I mean, that's a team that, nationally is not does not have the cachet of maybe some of the absolutely elite programs, but in the American Conference and the Big East leading up to that, Cincinnati has been the team to beat really for the last few years.
Right.
And so, I mean, they came into Liberty Bowl last year and thumped them pretty good on Halloween. So to turn around and win at Paul Brown Stadium the way Memphis did, I think says a lot. One of the players I'm really looking forward to watching is Sam Kraft. He's their leading rusher. He can catch some passes. He was basically the one kind of saving grace, I guess, at the end of the year last year. Maybe not saving grace, it's still lost, but the one sort of highlight when they had a rough go of it. He's only a sophomore now, but I think with Dorrell and Dorcius being out for the year at running back, he can really, really help them along with Brandon Hayes and kind of keeping that offense going the way it needs to. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Memphis is like going forward, offensively and defensively. They've shown a lot of good things, and if they can go to 2-0 in the conference against Houston, you really have to like not only their chance of getting to a bowl, which already looked pretty good, but really competing in that conference. I mean, for Memphis, say what you will about the American Athletic Conference and UCF being down and Louisville not being there, but if you go from being near the bottom where they were last year to winning that thing or being in contention, I think that says a lot for Justin Fuente and it says a lot for his players too.
You think he's going to leave after this year?
Well, I mean, I don't know that. It would depend on a lot of other circumstances.
I mean, could you see him getting an opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head what his his contract situation is or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure he'll get a lot of people's attention if Memphis goes, to have like 9 or 10 wins. Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, that'll impress some people, and then obviously you throw in sort of his playing background as a quarterback at Oklahoma and then Murray State. So yeah, I mean, I think if he wanted to move up at some point, he definitely could.
Yeah. All right. Well, be sure on Thursday night and Saturday night follow him on Twitter at JSWriterCraig. You can also follow along on Jackson Sun Sports Facebook page, which is just called simply Jackson Sun Sports. It's kind of like the college football playoff. We keep the name simple.
Right. Something simple.
Yeah. And we've tried to make sure to put everything from the college beat, whether it's football or any other sport, up on that page. And you can always go to and keep the up to date on what's going on with West Tennessee sports-wise. Be sure to follow him Thursday night, like I said earlier, and Saturday night from Memphis and from UTM for constant updates from both of those games. And just pretty much just stick with us and keep reading the Jackson Sun and JacksonSun.com for constant local sports coverage. Is there anything else that?
No, I think that about covers
that pretty much covers it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, and thanks for reading us, and good luck to your team this week.